What if a light meant to guide ships never turned off? Not once in over 100 years. Not during storms. Not during blackouts. Not even after the lighthouse keeper disappeared. Tonight, we go to the edge of the Atlantic. To a place sailors call the eye that never sleeps. This is the true story of the lighthouse that never went dark. On the rocky coast of Maine, there stands a lighthouse older than any living soul, Blackridge Point Lighthouse. Built in 1876, it was meant to protect ships from crashing into the sharp cliffs that tore through the Atlantic waves. But over time, it became known for something else entirely. Because while other lighthouses along the coast flickered, went dark, or were replaced by automation, Blackridge Point never stopped shining. Even when the power grid failed. Even when lightning struck its tower. Even when storms swallowed the coast whole. The light still burned, cutting through the fog like a blade. Locals said it wasn't powered by electricity at all. That it ran on something older, something alive. The story begins on October 12, 1954, the night keeper Elias Ward disappeared. Ward had been the lighthouse keeper for nearly 20 years. A quiet man. No family. A veteran of the sea. The kind of man who found comfort in isolation. He was last seen in the small village of Port Rainier, buying supplies, kerosene, salt pork, and candles. He waved goodbye, promised to return in a week, and took his small boat out to the lighthouse. He never came back. A search party was sent 2 days later. They found his boat, drifting in the shallows. His coat still folded neatly on the dock. The door to the lighthouse was open. Inside, the oil lamp in the tower was burning. But there was no trace of Elias Ward. No struggle. No footprints leading out. Only his logbook, open to the final entry. The light is not mine anymore. It knows when I sleep. After Ward's disappearance, the Coast Guard decided to automate the lighthouse. But before they could even install the system, the light stayed on, burning with no oil, no flame, and no explanation. Technicians removed the bulb. The light stayed on. They cut the wires. It stayed on. Finally, they sealed the entire top of the tower in steel plating. And the glow still leaked through, like a pulse under skin. The townsfolk began avoiding the coast at night. They said if you looked at the beam too long, you could see faces in it. People who weren't there. People who looked like they were drowning. In 1983, a young researcher named Dr. Nora Hensley from Boston University came to study the phenomenon. She specialized in electromagnetic anomalies, but she also had a fascination with the supernatural. She convinced the Coast Guard to let her spend one night inside Blackridge Lighthouse. Her first report was enthusiastic. She recorded constant electrical surges, even though no power source was connected. Her Geiger counter picked up mild radiation spikes. And her compass refused to point north. But by the second night, her tone changed. Her notes grew frantic. It's not light. It's awareness. It sees me even when I close my eyes. Ward didn't leave. He's in the beam. The next morning, rescue boats were sent after she failed to check in. They found her equipment scattered across the floor. Her tape recorder was still running. The last minute captured the sound of heavy footsteps, the crash of a door, and her whispering. It's coming from beneath the light. Dr. Hensley was never found. By the 1990s, Blackridge Point had become a ghost story among fishermen. They swore the light didn't just shine, it moved. Some nights, it swept across the sea as usual. Other nights, it tilted down toward the village itself, like it was searching for something. That's when the accident started. Boats smashed against rocks that weren't there before. Homes near the cliffs reported strange vibrations under the floor. Dogs barked at the ocean until they collapsed from exhaustion. And then there was the fog. A thick, unnatural mist began rolling in at random times, even on clear days. Locals called it Ward's breath. Inside that fog, people said they could hear a distant hum. Not from the sea, but from the light itself. In 2001, a crew from a paranormal TV show called Unseen America decided to film an episode there. They set up cameras around the base and even managed to enter the lighthouse through a side hatch. The episode was never aired. A Coast Guard team found their van 2 days later, doors open, equipment gone, all 7 crew members missing. The only thing recovered was a single camera found near the shore. The footage was disturbing. At first, it showed normal documentation, the crew laughing, setting up lights, joking nervously. But at 2:47 a.m., the camera shook violently. The beam from the lighthouse turned red. A low humming filled the air. And one by one, the crew began turning toward the light, staring, motionless. The last frame showed a woman walking up the spiral stairs, whispering. "He's still keeping watch." Then the screen went black. In 2017, a storm known as the nor'easter of the century hit the Maine coast. Power lines were torn down. Entire towns went dark. But not Blackridge Point. The lighthouse glowed brighter than ever, visible from 40 miles away. Residents of nearby towns said they saw strange silhouettes inside the beam, like figures walking in slow circles around the light, though the lighthouse had been sealed for decades. And then, for the first time in 143 years, the light blinked. It was only for a second. But in that single second, something changed. Every clock in Port Rainier stopped at 3:06 a.m. The ocean went silent. And fishermen reported seeing a second lighthouse reflected on the water, identical, but upside down, shining from beneath the waves. A month later, a private diver named Caleb Foster decided to explore the waters beneath Blackridge Point. He wanted proof, something to sell to news outlets or paranormal channels. He dove at dawn, equipped with a GoPro and a depth tracker. At 112 feet down, his camera caught something impossible. A structure identical to the lighthouse, completely submerged. The same bricks. The same windows. And inside that underwater tower, a figure, standing motionless behind the glass. The timestamp on the footage went haywire. The screen flickered. Then the diver's breathing became panicked. "Something's moving in there, wait, what the hell?" His final words before static took over were, "The light's on down here too." Caleb's body was recovered the next morning, tangled in seaweed near the rocks. His eyes were completely white. And his skin had a faint glow, like it had been touched by radiation. To this day, no one can explain what powers the lighthouse. Some believe it's built on an ancient magnetic fault. Others say it's the work of experimental 19th century technology gone wrong. But among locals, there's another story, one that's been whispered for generations. They say when Elias Ward first took the job, he made a promise. A sailor's vow. To keep the light burning, no matter what. And that promise became something more than human. The light doesn't guide ships anymore. It keeps them away. It's a warning. A living thing bound to its keeper. And hungry for anyone who dares to take his place. In 2023, a maintenance team attempted to dismantle the structure once and for all. They arrived with demolition gear, generators, and protective suits. At 9:43 a.m., they radioed in, "We're cutting power to the beacon." Seconds later, every sensor and camera in the area shut down. The Coast Guard base 10 miles away reported a blinding flash across the horizon. And when rescue teams reached the site, all they found were melted helmets and blackened footprints on the stone. The light was still burning. Now, the government has fenced off the area. Boats are forbidden to sail within 2 miles of the coast. But locals say the light's beam has changed again. It doesn't spin like it used to, it points inland. At night, it sweeps across the forests and hills, as if it's searching. Sometimes, it stops on a single house and lingers, until the lights in that home flicker out one by one. And then, a new rumor began circulating online. That if you visit Blackridge Point on a moonless night, and take a photo toward the beam, you'll see a shadow in the center of it. A man in an old coat, staring back. Face pale. Eyes glowing faintly white. They say it's Elias Ward. Still keeping the light alive. Still watching. Still waiting for someone to take his place. The Coast Guard's records officially list Blackridge Lighthouse as decommissioned and sealed. But if you ever find yourself driving along the Maine coast at night, look out toward the water, because you might see a beam cutting through the fog. A light that's not supposed to exist anymore. And if you do, don't look directly into it, because some lights don't guide you home. They show you where the dead still stand guard.